It's hustle or sister. Yeah, they keep on leveling up. There's no time like this fake shit. Fuck that usury. All they talk is the screamy shit. I act like a bitch, and yet this way you still listening. Pocket going up, watch your eye in the drop shit. Where they expect us, I got a lot of fuck inspiring me. All I know is trouble in the damn.
What is up? This is your king and I, Vincent Valentine, EX Turk, coming back into another Coliseum battle. My hair looks like shit, so I'm covering this up. So, with the hood. So, without further ado, we're going to be pairing it up with two killing machine robots, pretty much. This is where a man has built something, built advanced technology, and this technology ends up trying to kill us. So to start off, we're going to be doing the Injustice 2, since this is video game Deathbattle. We're going to be doing the Injustice 2 Brainiac. Now, he would have the skills of the animated series and his comic book stuff, so he could take over technology. He could still use his spaceship to obliterate you. He can program multiple bodies as long as they're robotic. So he can use grid. He can technically use cyborg if he wants to on this one, because it's fair game, because that's what Brainiac's powers are. Now, I kind of like Brainiac as a kid. I even owned a toy of Brainiac, which is the skin I'm using right now in this death battle. Is the one of the toy I used to have when KB Toys is in there. So he can program new bodies and do pretty well, you know. And his opponent's gonna be, his opponent's gonna end up being the biggest killing machine in Final Fantasy, the Omega weapon. Now, with the Omega weapon, we're going to be focusing the Final Fantasy 15 driven one, so he's not going to have the origins where he comes from a different time or the future like he does in his original other games. So we're not going to be focusing on that for Omega. So this is going to be the Niflheim Empire version built Omega weapon that's used against in the Chapter 14 update. So, let's get started. Starting with Brainiac, when it comes to strength, he's very good and persistent at strength. But I think most of it is his intelligence. But I'd say with the strength, Omega would actually have the upper hand, because Omega is nothing but a killing machine. Thus, strength is the biggest priority for Omega. Now, when it comes to speed, since Omega is bigger than Brainiac, unless Brainiac takes over a body of a machine much larger than Omega, I'd have to say Brainiac's a lot faster than Omega. And unless Omega turns into his red form, but even in his red form, can't catch up to Brainiac's speed on the fact that Brainiac's a smaller person. Like I said, if you're bigger, it's going to be harder to hit the smaller guy. Like I said, I used that Dragon Ball Z episode for Future Trunks versus Perfect Cell. Like Perfect Cell said it. If you're not, you can be physically stronger, but, if you can't hit them, then it's not going to work. So when it comes to physical strength, Omega has the upper hand. As for speed, if you talk about the normal body, because he's smaller than Omega, Brainiac would actually have a better chance at actually being able to dodge some of Omega's stuff. Unless he gets caught in the Omega beam, which this is where they both have something in common. Like Brainiac's, Awakening? I think it's called, Awakening is when he uses the spaceship to obliterate you. As Omega uses Omega beam. Now, before anyone says something's copying the other, Omega has always had Omega beam in every other Final Fantasy. They just decided to add it in the 15 version of Final Fantasy on the fact that, Omega still has the same movesets he does in his other games. It's just this one's built by Niflheim, so, we don't know if that makes him stronger or weaker, but we're just going to be using this version of Omega, Now, Omega is super powerful, as it is. When Omega turns into his red form, heating form where he overheats, nothing can actually touch him. Not the summons, not royal arms, or the team's combo, or anything at all could touch him except for hitting him in the one weak spot. And his one weak spot is when he's in his when he's in his outrage mode. You know, when he's in his outrage mode, his weakness is his back. But he ain't gonna let you get to it, because in rage mode, his attack, strength, and speed increase tenfold, as well as the fierceness of his attack. Or like Gentiana says, Omega is Omega's a killing machine. It has no remorse. It's a weapon built to destroy the gods, pretty much to destroy all the summons. And you know, it does a better job than Immortalis. Immortalis is a failure compared to Omega. Now, the reason why Verstale probably never would have used Omega, because he probably understood that Omega's out of control. So Arden ended up using that because, well, Arden's not going to care if he destroys some of Insomnia. So, of course, he, you know, after Verstale's passing, you know, Arden would be able to use Omega. But Omega is nothing but a killing machine, and when he's in his red form, he destroys absolutely everything in his berserk form. Not to mention, he could also cause other opponents berserk until they blow up. Pretty much increase your rage and to the point where you blow up if you use too much of it. Which that'd be, luckily, though, Brainac's more of a, what you call, logical villain. So, I don't think rage is going to be a problem with Brainiac. So, Brainiac could actually dodge that. But if you feel a little bit of rage, Omega could manipulate it with his special missiles and make you blow up for using too much rage. Because Omega uses rage, you know. Now, like I said, when it comes to intelligence, I'd have to say they're both equal. Even though Brainiac uses his brain a lot more, Omega does understand stuff. In fact, Omega isn't really smart, but when it comes to like battle smart, Omega is battle smart. Like even in the red rage mode, Omega knows when you're about to attack its weakness in the back. You know, it knows. And it could counterattack, and he knows what counterattacks to use to mess with your stats, ailments, and blow up the rest of your party until you're the only one. And then he'll come right after you. So, when it comes to battle smarts, I gotta say Omega is just, I'd say they're both equal on intelligence. You know, it's obviously Brainiac's a genius. I mean, fuck, his name is Brainiac. His name is Brainiac for a reason. Omega's only battle smart. You know, in battle, and that's because Omega's only programmed to kill. Nothing else. Out of all of Verstale's weapons in the Niflheim, you know, Omega's the most dangerous. Even Diamond Weapon was under control by Glocka's armor. You know. But Omega Weapon is something far... And not even the great Emperor Idolus knows of Omega's existence. Or otherwise he would have terminated Verstale's science program. Just on the fact of how dangerous Omega is. You know. And it can still warp through dimensions, even though it's not the other Final Fantasy ones. This weapon can warp through dimensions, so pretty much Omega could go through different dimensions. When Brainiac uses a spaceship, when like Brainiac uses the spaceship to obliterate stuff, Omega could transfer out of that dimension and appear behind him in another dimension if it felt threatened. You know, which is this is gonna be very hard because, you know, I like both characters as well. You know, out of Superman villains, Brainiac has always been my favorite of all because, you know, childhood nostalgic when I bought the figure as a kid. This is gonna be really hard to judge. Now, no, let's not forget that Brainiac can't control machines. You know, can't control machines. But from what I don't know, it could be possible that Brainiac could take control of the Omega weapon. It could be possible because there's no stats saying it can't be controlled. It just can't be damaged or destroyed so easily. You know, you can only, you know, it's almost nearly impossible to kill. Not just only as a boss battle, but in the story and lore of 15. Again, it's one of the very weapons that Verstale created that Verstale is actually scared of. That he's actually legitimately scared of. You know, that Arden was able to use in the Chapter 14 update. You know. So, this might be the weapon that killed... Who knows? This might be the weapon that ended up killing Shiva in the original in the original story of 15. So that's pretty powerful. It is. It's exactly what's called a god killer. Definitely for sure. But you know, it could be. We don't know if there's a program where it could be controlled. So I can imagine the only way that possibly Brainiac would win is if Brainiac gets his body destroyed, figure a way to hack Omega's programming, and actually end up controlling Omega. Thus, making Omega destroy himself or use Omega as a new body. Then if that way, he would actually win, because he could just dismantle Omega's destructive personality and make him more of an an intelligent little thing. You know, the little red dots on Omega's face, you know, will turn green, or have the little things that the little logos he has, little things on his head. So, in all technical terms, this is actually gonna be a really hard call. But I feel like Brainiac would win this one, even though I like Omega Weapon, and I remember how hard the Omega Weapon boss is at 15. And remember, we're not even using the other Omegas. We're not going to be using we're not using the Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus one. We're not using the Final Fantasy V original one. We're not using the Final Fantasy 13 one. Of course, if you want to count 13 as part of the Fabula 15 part of the Fabula Crystallis Novia, then you know. But even then, that Omega's still not the same. That Omega comes from the world of 5 and traveled to the 13 world through dimensions. But nonetheless, I think this is going to be a really hard call, and I might get controversy for this. But remember, I do these death battles for fun. I have to go with Brainiac, because with the power of controlling machines, and there's nothing stating that Omega can't be controlled. You know, it's not like the Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus where he can, because he's not actually a machine. He's actually a weapon in that game. But in 15, he's an actual machine made by Niflheim, who use technology, computers, and also demons for their base. And it doesn't even matter if the technology is made with demons. The fact of the matter is Omega is technology. Even if it's demon technology, it's still technology. Magitech is still technology. You know? So technically, Brainiac would win based off the fact he could control Omega, cause Omega to go into an entire rage spasm until it overheats and overheats and overheats, and then so much that the body of Omega can't take it, and then Omega blows up. Because the biggest weakness with Omega Weapon is Omega is pure rage. He's pretty much a rage machine. You know, he's pure rage, and too much rage can overload and heat a machine up. That's why he slows down when he gets in a rage mode. Now, with Brainiac controlling his mind, he can get Omega so mad, so angry, that he blows himself up with too much anger, and thus, it's actually just Omega's rage that is his weakness. His own rage is his weakness, so technically Brainiac would win. So may the crystal be with you. This was a very hard choice, and remember, this is only for fun. May the crystal be with you.